First story. My delusional daughter saved up for 5 months to buy a Christmas present for her step-grandfather for taking care of her. So I demanded she spend the money on her brother's second present, who is her real family. She refused and humiliated my son, so I grounded her, gave her room to my son, and allowed my son to take credit for the presents she bought for her step-grandfather. I 41F have 2 kids, Josh 14M and Rachel 13F. They're less than a year apart, and they've always been very different people, even from when they were little. Josh is more energetic, social, and a bit hot-headed. Rachel's quieter, super organized, and really good with money. She's one of those kids who will literally make spreadsheets for birthday budgets. I'm not even exaggerating. I'll admit right up front that Josh has always been the one who needs more managing, especially when it comes to anything financial or emotional. It's been that way since elementary school. I used to chalk it up to him being the older sibling, maybe he just needed more attention. But it's been a pattern. He burns through money fast. If he gets birthday money, it's gone in 2 days. Meanwhile, Rachel will sit on hers for months, only spending small amounts on books or crafts, and saving the rest, just in case. We've tried giving both of them the same monthly allowance, not a lot, just enough to learn how to budget. Rachel's built herself a savings jar that she actually locks. Josh, he either buys junk he forgets about or begs for advances when he's already spent everything. I've had to step in multiple times when he realized he needed something for school, but didn't have money left. The problem is, he's also the louder one. When he's upset, everyone hears about it. When Rachel's upset, she just shuts down and goes to her room. So yeah, I'll admit it's easier to smooth things over with Josh. Sometimes I step in just to stop the meltdown. I don't think that makes me a bad parent. I think that's just doing what needs to be done sometimes. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, Josh spent his gift allowance we give them extra in December for holiday, spending on this portable VR headset he saw online. I warned him to think about it before ordering, but he insisted. He was obsessed with it for 6 days, literally slept with the thing next to his bed, then suddenly it wasn't fun anymore, and he wanted to return it. The problem is, he'd already trashed the box. He cut it open badly, lost part of the inner packaging, and the headset itself had scratches. The store had a 30-day return policy, but only if it's in resellable condition. I called and even tried showing up in person to explain, but they wouldn't budge. He got upset, obviously. And by upset, I mean full-on crying, slamming doors, refusing to come out of his room upset. He said it was unfair, that I'm always getting him cheap stuff, and Rachel always gets better things. That part stung because I don't play favorites. I really don't. But he feels like that's what's happening, and feelings matter too. Fast forward to this past weekend, we went Christmas shopping. We were doing a smaller party this year, so we told the kids to be thoughtful, but practical with their gift choices. Rachel had already made a list, a whole list with prices, estimated tax, and ideas for each person. She even asked what kinds of snacks people liked so she could make little personalized gift bags. She used her own money for anything over the gift allowance we gave her. Josh, well, he started looking at games and electronics for himself. I reminded him that this trip was about getting gifts for other people, not himself. He kept saying, yeah, I know, but then circled back to this game he wanted, one that was more expensive than what he had left. He asked me to help cover the difference. I told him I couldn't, not just financially, but because it wouldn't be fair to Rachel. He immediately got defensive, saying I was doing the favorite thing again, and how I always help her but never him. I told him that wasn't true, but of course it fell on deaf ears. Then he asked if Rachel could pitch in. I asked Rachel if she'd be willing to help Josh out, maybe as an early gift, or just out of kindness. She said no. Not rudely, just plain and simple. No. I asked again, saying it would mean a lot to him. She said she already got him a gift, and she didn't have extra to spare. I reminded her that she did still have some savings. That's when she snapped back and said that she had set that money aside for our family friend, technically my stepfather, who she calls Grandpa Tom. Tom is the only grandparent who's consistently been in her life. My mom moved away and isn't close to either kid, and their dad's parents never really took to Rachel, especially after her diagnosis a few years ago. She's on the autism spectrum, high functioning, but it changed how some people treated her. Tom stuck by her through everything. He always came to her school events, sent little notes or snacks for exams, and even learned some basic techniques for supporting autistic kids because he wanted to understand her better. She decided she wanted to buy him a special pair of headphones that could hook into his TV with a long aux cord, since his hearing's been getting worse. They're expensive, I wouldn't have bought them myself, but she'd been saving for months, literally since August. She told me this was important to her, and that she didn't want to give up that money to help Josh buy another game he probably wouldn't even play in a week. That hit a nerve because she was starting to sound kind of entitled. Like she thought she was better than him because she saves, and he doesn't. We started arguing. Not yelling, but back and forth, with Josh standing next to me looking like a kicked puppy. I told her she was being dramatic and selfish, and that if she was going to drop that much money on someone who wasn't even real family, then maybe she could spare a little to help her own brother. I said that out loud, that he's not even your real grandfather. I'll admit, I said it with bite. I knew I'd crossed a line. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she paid for the headphones, didn't wait for us, and walked straight out to the car. Josh kept pushing about the game, calling her selfish, and I told him to quiet down. I tried explaining it to Rachel again in the car. I told her that it wasn't about the money. It was about family. That Josh had made a mistake, sure, but he was trying to enjoy the holiday too, and she had the ability to help him. I said it wouldn't even hurt her. She could always save up again later, and it would mean a lot to him. I even tried saying it would help him learn to appreciate things more if it came from someone else's generosity. She cut me off. She said it was her money. She saved it on her own, and she didn't think it was my place to tell her how to use it. She reminded me that she had already bought Josh a gift, one that was thoughtful and specific to him, and that she didn't owe him anything extra just because he'd spent his too fast. Josh started muttering that she was being cold and selfish. Rachel didn't say anything. She just stared out the window, biting the inside of her cheek, the way she does when she's trying not to cry in front of people. We drove the rest of the way home in silence. That night, I got a call from her dad, my ex. I don't know what Rachel told him, but he tore into me. He said I had no right to pressure her like that. I told him he was overreacting, and that it wasn't some huge moral failure. I said siblings should look out for each other, and if one has extra and the other doesn't, sharing is just natural. He still didn't buy it. He said I was playing favorites and trying to make Rachel compensate for Josh's behavior, and that I've been doing it for years. I've done more than enough for both kids. I've spent hours trying to teach Josh budgeting skills, trying to manage Rachel's school anxiety, juggling therapy appointments, and covering for both when things got rough. I've given them the same tools. Rachel just uses hers better. That's not favoritism, that's reality. And I don't think it's wrong to expect someone in a family to help when they can. I grew up with siblings. We fought, sure, but we always had each other's backs. If my sister blew her money on something stupid and couldn't afford a prom dress, I chipped in. If my brother got kicked off the soccer team for grades, we helped cover tutoring. That's what family does. Rachel has always been the more together one, but lately it started feeling like she holds that over Josh. Like she thinks being responsible makes her morally superior. Last year, he forgot to buy our cousin a birthday gift, and I covered it for him. She brought it up for months. Even at the cousin's house, she made a point to say, "At least I brought something." It's subtle, but it adds up. She also refuses to lend money ever. Not even $5 if Josh wants something from the vending machine at school. She says if he really needs it, I can give it to him. But she's not getting pulled into his habits. I used to admire her discipline, but now it's just rigid and cold. She didn't speak to me for 2 days after the store incident. Just went quiet, ate meals in her room, and answered in one-word replies. When I asked if she wanted to talk about it, she said, "No, you already said what you think." I heard it. I don't regret what I said about her grandfather. I don't consider Tom family. He married my mom when I was a teen, and we never got close. He was nice to my kids, sure, but I always saw him more as an acquaintance. I think it's weird that Rachel latched onto him so hard. He's not blood, and I don't see why she treats him like he's some saint. But if she wants to buy him something expensive, that's her business. I just thought she could have used some of that generosity on her brother too. Josh eventually dropped the game idea, though not quietly. He's been sulking all week, saying the whole family is against him and Rachel gets away with everything. I told him that's not true, but I don't blame him for being upset. I don't think it would have hurt Rachel to give a little. Instead, she made a big show of her budget and savings and responsibility, and now she's the victim somehow. I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I'm tired of Rachel acting like every little thing is an attack on her autonomy, and I'm tired of people acting like I'm the bad guy for asking her to help her brother. I wasn't trying to take her money. I wasn't demanding anything. I was asking as a mum for one kid to show kindness to another. Some of my friends say I was right to push for it. that it would have been a good lesson in compassion. Others think I crossed a line, especially saying what I said about her grandfather. Rachel's dad still isn't talking to me. He just texts to check on her and keeps it short. So now I'm here. I need an unbiased opinion. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. YTA. And I don't know how else to say this, but you parent like someone who's exhausted and has decided it's easier to dump the emotional work on the child who doesn't fight back. Rachel didn't say no because she's rigid or holier than thou. She said no because she's tired of being the family safety net. You keep calling Josh sensitive and passionate, but let's be real. The kid throws tantrums when he doesn't get his way. And instead of dealing with that, you pass the discomfort to Rachel because she's quiet and won't blow up the room. And the worst part, the moment Rachel held a boundary, you tried to emotionally crack it by attacking the person she bought the headphones for. You basically punished her for loving someone who treats her well. That's messed up. Also, you keep insisting you don't have favorites, but your behavior screams that you do. Rachel gets responsibility, lectures, pressure, and guilt. Josh gets excuses, sympathy, and bailouts. If you keep this dynamic going, I promise you're building the blueprint for a future where Rachel goes low contact the moment she's old enough to move out, and Josh becomes a 25-year-old who still can't manage basic finances without mommy stepping in. This wasn't a money issue. This was a parenting issue, and you handled it terribly. Comment 2. YTA. I don't think you even realize how normalized your bias towards Josh has become. He messes up with money, you run interference. He begs, you let him. He insults Rachel, you say nothing. You're not teaching him accountability. You're teaching him that you'll always clean up his messes and bully whoever won't. And don't even start with that. Siblings should help each other crap. What you really mean is Rachel should help Josh. Because I guarantee if the roles were reversed, if Rachel had spent her money stupidly and Josh had saved, you would have never asked him to give her anything. You'd call it a lesson in consequences. But since it's your son, it's somehow different. Also, calling her grandfather, not real family, because you don't like the guy. Gross. The man showed up for her. That's what counts. You can hate your stepdad all you want, but don't project that onto your daughter's relationship with him. She's 13 and shows more integrity than you and your son combined. Maybe ask yourself why you're so comfortable emotionally manipulating one child while shielding the other from any discomfort. Comment 3. This is unpopular, maybe, but I don't think this is just about the money. YTA. But not just for that moment. You've built a whole family dynamic where one kid is expected to absorb the consequences of the other's impulsiveness. Rachel doesn't just save money, she plans, she observes, and she tracks things. She's the kind of kid who learned early that if she didn't prepare, no one else would have her back. That's a survival skill, not a personality quirk. Meanwhile, Josh knows he can F around, and someone usually you will cover for him. When you tried to reason with Rachel, you weren't asking her for a favor. You were doing what you always do, shifting the weight from Josh to her. Also, it says a lot that when she said no, you didn't accept it. You argued. You guilted her. You insulted someone she clearly loves. And then, when she broke down, you still tried to explain why her money wasn't really hers. That's manipulative. I don't think you're a bad parent, but I do think you're way too deep in your own narrative of fairness to realize what you're doing to your daughter's trust. Update. So I'm back with an update. After the shopping trip incident, things were tense for a few days, but I figured it would settle. Christmas came, and I gave Josh the game he originally wanted, the one he couldn't afford because of how he'd spent his allowance. I paid for it myself. It was his main Christmas gift from me. I just wanted him to have something he'd been excited about for weeks, and honestly, I was glad to see him happy. Rachel didn't say anything at first, but the moment he unwrapped it, I could see it on her face. She went stiff and tight-lipped. Later she made some passive comment like, "Of course you get it anyway." And when I called her out on it, she just said it was predictable. I told her if she couldn't be happy for her brother, the least she could do was not ruin the mood for everyone else. That afternoon she wrapped the headphones she'd bought for my stepdad and gave them to him privately in another room. She didn't want Josh or me around for that. She said it was personal. Fine. When my stepdad opened them later and thanked the kids, I corrected him and made it clear Rachel had bought them. I thought that was that. The next day, Josh posted a picture of Grandpa wearing the headphones. He captioned it something like, "Glad I could help Grandpa hear his shows better. Happy holidays." And that was apparently the worst thing he could have done, according to Rachel. She lost it. Full meltdown. She stormed into the room yelling at Josh, demanding he take it down, screaming that he was stealing her gift. Josh told her to chill and said it wasn't that deep, and then she turned on me when I stepped in. She said I let him take credit for something she worked hard on. I told her she was overreacting. Everyone in the family knows she bought the headphones. She handed them over herself. I even told Tom when he unwrapped them. It's not like anyone's confused. So what if Josh posted a sentimental caption? He didn't say he paid for it. He was just sharing a moment with his grandfather. She said I was letting him get away with it again, and that I didn't care about her effort. I told her plainly, if she's going to fall apart every time someone doesn't applaud her, that's her problem. She was still shaking and crying, so I walked away before it turned into a bigger scene. Later that night, Josh was frustrated that his game needed a big update and was taking forever to install. He asked if he could borrow Rachel's old tablet to pass the time. She's had a new one for over a year. This one just sits in a drawer. I told her to let him use it for a bit, and she flat out refused. I told her to stop being petty. It's a tablet she hasn't touched in months. If he breaks it, I'll replace it. She repeated that she wasn't responsible for making sure Josh had fun and walked away again. A while later, I overheard Josh venting to himself in the living room, saying something like, "Of course she won't share. She hoards everything." Rachel passed by and snapped, "Maybe think next time instead of expecting people to rescue you." That's when I grounded her. Not for saying no about the tablet, for the attitude. This has been building for weeks now. Every time Josh is happy or even neutral, she finds a way to throw something in his face. She called her dad crying, and he came to pick her up, even though I told him it wasn't necessary. He stood outside with her like I'd traumatized her for life. He told me I was punishing her for being independent. No, I was holding her accountable for treating people like they're beneath her. She talks like Josh is this walking failure, and she's the only adult in the room. And to be honest, I'm tired of the way he coddles her. He feeds this whole narrative that she's some misunderstood genius, when really she's a teenager who's been allowed to act superior for too long. I've tried to bring balance to this house. I've shown Rachel respect where it's due, and I've supported her interests. But she doesn't get a free pass to disrespect her brother, just because she knows how to save money. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since. She barely says a word to Josh. She refused to join us for dinner twice this week. Josh, on the other hand, is scared to post online or even mention the headphones. I had to reassure him that he didn't do anything wrong. He was excited. He shared a moment. That's what kids do. He wasn't stealing anything. Rachel just refuses to share any space with him emotionally. People in my life are acting like Rachel's behavior is some righteous rebellion. But I see it clearly. She's getting worse, not better. She doesn't compromise. She doesn't trust anyone. She thinks she's above correction. And yes, she saves money. But financial discipline without emotional maturity is just stubbornness in disguise. You can't build a good life if you think you're the only one who ever does anything right. At the end of the day, I'm still trying to teach both my kids balance. Rachel's dad lets her live in this bubble where she's always right, always the victim. I'm trying to prepare her for reality. The real world doesn't reward you for being bitter and closed off. And the real world doesn't stop spinning just because your little brother posted something you didn't like. So I'm still not sure where I went wrong here. I've explained myself. I've kept things fair. I gave Josh a Christmas gift and defended a moment he was proud of. Rachel is the one pushing everyone away, and I'm supposed to just let that slide. I still think I'm doing what any reasonable parent would do. I haven't demanded anything from her that wasn't rooted in family values. If this is what being unfair looks like, then I don't know what people expect anymore. Comments. Comment 1. Your dynamic with your kids is so one-sided it hurts to read. I think what's happening here is you see Rachel as capable, so you assume she can take it. And you see Josh as fragile, so you think he needs constant emotional padding. But here's the reality. You're burning out your daughter by expecting her to function like an adult at 13, while you're actively stunting your son's growth. He posts a caption that he knows implies he gave the gift, and your response is basically, it's not like anyone thinks he bought it. Yes, Tom knows. But kids don't care about that. What matters to Rachel is that her hard work was used as social media clout by someone who didn't do a damn thing. And your response? Call her a drama queen. Ground her. You say she's emotionally immature. But what's more immature, saving up for months to give a meaningful gift, or blowing through cash in a week and crying when you don't fix it? Because one of your kids is showing serious emotional maturity. And it isn't Josh. She's pulling away because you keep treating her like the problem for not caving in. You're going to wake up in a few years and wonder why she never visits. You'll say it's because she always had a chip on her shoulder. But no, it's because you chipped away at her dignity, piece by piece. Comment 2. YTA. Because you're raising one child to expect the world to cater to his every failure, and another to feel like any boundary she sets is a personal attack against her family. You say you're trying to teach Rachel balance, but you only ever correct her. Not once in either post did you hold Josh accountable without cushioning it. You keep mentioning that Rachel won't share, that she's rigid. But maybe she's trying to draw the only line she can in a house where every inch she gives gets taken and twisted. And you're mad that she won't make herself small enough to keep your peace. Also, the stuff you said about her grandfather? Unreal. That man stood by her when others didn't. And because you don't like him, you try to taint that bond. That's low. You don't have to love him. But you don't get to weaponize your resentment to devalue a relationship that clearly means everything to your daughter. You're not raising one too emotional kid and one too reckless one. You're raising one kid to keep asking for more and another, who's slowly learning that nothing she does is ever enough to be treated fairly. Fix that before she stops expecting fairness from anyone ever again. Comment 3. YTA. The wildest part is how convinced you are that you're being reasonable, when in reality you're just dressing up favoritism as logic. You keep acting like Rachel is this cold, selfish, ungrateful kid, when all she's doing is reacting to the constant emotional bait and switch you've built around Josh. She spends months planning a meaningful gift. You let Josh open it early and test it. He makes a vague post implying he gave it. You defend it. She calls it out. She's grounded. How is she supposed to win? Meanwhile, Josh messes up again and again and faces zero real consequence. You think you're protecting him, but what you're actually doing is training him to expect other people, especially women, to clean up after him. Then smile while doing it. You're building an entitled adult. And your little speech about Rachel needing to learn emotional maturity? That's rich coming from someone who throws the word unsafe in quotes like it's a joke. Maybe instead of trying to break down her walls, ask why she feels like she needs to build them so damn high in the first place. Update. I didn't think things could get worse after the last situation, but somehow they did. And I'm honestly at the point where I feel like I'm living with two completely different versions of my daughter. The one everyone else treats like a delicate genius, and the real one I'm dealing with at home, disrespectful and dramatic. A few days after the Christmas blow up, I found Rachel's notebook sitting out on the counter. She always keeps it in her room, but she left it near her backpack. I wasn't snooping. It was open, and the page facing up had my name on it in huge letters. Inside, she'd written paragraph after paragraph about how unsafe she feels around me and Josh, how she doesn't trust the environment, how she feels like she doesn't belong in this family, and even a line about wanting to leave permanently. She wrote that I weaponize emotions, and that Josh absorbs all resources. It sounded like she stole the wording from one of her dad's texts. I confronted her immediately. I told her I wasn't going to let her write that kind of poison and then act normal around us. She didn't deny writing any of it, she just said I shouldn't have read it. I told her if she's old enough to write accusations like that, she's old enough to have a real conversation about them. Instead, she doubled down and said everything she wrote was true. When I asked how she could say unsafe about her own home, she said it wasn't physical, it was emotional instability caused by favoritism. I told her point blank that she needs to stop parroting her father and take responsibility for the way she talks to people. She rolled her eyes at me, literally rolled her eyes. That disrespect set me off more than anything she wrote. The next morning, she returned every Christmas gift we gave her. Every single one. She put them neatly on the dining table with a note saying she didn't feel comfortable accepting gifts from people who don't respect her. At that point, I honestly thought she was doing it for attention. I told her she was being dramatic and ungrateful. Josh saw the pile and asked if she was leaving again, which made her storm off. Later that day, Josh sent a meme in the family group chat, just a harmless joke, and Rachel replied with something snide about, interesting how some people can joke, but can't take accountability. I told her to stop picking fights. She replied, stop silencing me. That was the last straw. I removed her from the group chat altogether because she was turning every basic interaction into a battlefield. She didn't try to come back or apologize, nothing. That evening she came to me and said she wants to live with her father full time, like she was giving notice on an apartment. I told her she wasn't old enough to make that kind of decision on a whim just because she's mad. She said she wasn't deciding out of anger. She was choosing mental safety. I told her she's too comfortable running away from situations she doesn't like. She said staying here is draining. I told her life is going to be a lot more draining if she thinks boundaries mean never hearing anything she doesn't want to hear. Her dad got involved. He came over in person and basically stormed up to the house like he was ready for a fight. He confronted me in front of both kids, accusing me of psychological pressure and emotionally isolating Rachel. He started listing off grievances like he'd been keeping notes: the store incident, the grounding, the game, the caption argument, all twisted in the most dramatic way. Josh got upset hearing his father talk like that and kept trying to defend me, which somehow made Rachel cry harder. I told her dad he has been undermining me for years, and that if he keeps feeding her this victim narrative, she's never going to learn how to handle conflict. He grabbed Rachel's overnight bag and said she was going with him for a few days. Fine. I needed space from her attitude anyway. While she was gone, Josh asked if he could use her room to play his game because her monitor is better. I didn't see a problem with it. It's one house, not a hotel where she owns a private suite. So I let him. He played for maybe an hour. That's it. When Rachel came back and saw the controller cable on her desk, she exploded. She screamed that I violated her privacy. I told her she doesn't get to claim territorial rights like she's renting the place. She said her personal space was disrespected. I told her she's being ridiculous. It's not like anyone went through her drawers. She called her dad again, crying. Again. And here's the kicker. Grandpa Tom heard about the whole situation through my mother. And now he's threatening to leave an inheritance solely to Rachel because she shows empathy. He hasn't said a word to me directly, which I find unbelievably disrespectful. First of all, he's not even my real father. Second, the idea that he would financially encourage this behavior is insane. I told my mom that if he wants to reward her for being manipulative, that's on him, but he's overstepping. Meanwhile, Josh is still walking on eggshells because he's afraid of triggering another meltdown. He even hesitated before posting a photo of his new game because he didn't want Rachel twisting it. I never wanted my son to feel like sharing his life online is dangerous. And somehow this has turned into my fault too. Rachel told her dad she feels digitally unsafe around Josh. What does that even mean? I'm trying to hold the family together, and Rachel is acting like she's rising above us all morally. She's 13, not a therapist. She doesn't get to rewrite the family dynamic because she thinks she's emotionally superior. I still don't understand how everyone keeps painting her as the wounded party when she's the one escalating every situation. I'm tired of being the only parent in this house who sees that her rigidity is not maturity, it's entitlement. Comments. Comment 1. You sound vindictive. Like, forget favoritism, that ship sailed. You're now in territory where you're actively trying to emotionally punish your daughter for not falling in line. You kicked her out of the family group chat for sarcasm. You let her brother sit in her private space without asking for, knowing they were barely speaking. You confronted her about personal thoughts in a notebook and acted offended she had feelings you didn't like. This isn't discipline. It's petty retaliation. And then there's Tom. The man showed up for your kid when no one else did. And your response to him potentially leaving her an inheritance is, he's not even my real father. Really? You can't even see that he's trying to affirm her because you're too busy defending your golden child. Rachel's not perfect, she's sarcastic, closed off, and maybe even a little harsh. But she's not wrong. You've created a house where emotional honesty gets punished and favoritism gets gift-wrapped. You're going to lose her. Probably forever. And you'll still be sitting there asking, what did I do? Comment 2. YTA. I've read every one of your updates, and you sound like the type who thinks discipline and disrespect are the same thing, that if a kid isn't obedient, they're ungrateful. You treat Rachel like she's your co-parent, someone who has to carry your emotional workload and clean up after her brother's lack of impulse control. When she won't play that role, you punish her, remove her from group chats, read her notebook, let her brother use her stuff, and then call her entitled. No, man, she's not entitled. She's exhausted. And let's be real. Josh isn't walking on eggshells. He's just finally facing consequences for being selfish, and it makes him uncomfortable. You're raising a guy who can't take no in any context, financial, emotional, or otherwise. Rachel's not the one making this house tense. She's reacting to the tension you created by treating her like the problem every time she dares to say no. Update. I didn't plan on writing another update, but things have escalated to a point that even I didn't expect. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, I still don't believe I've done anything unreasonable as a parent. If anything, this situation has made it even clearer that Rachel is being influenced and enabled in ways that are pulling her further away from her own family. Rachel never really returned after the last incident. She went to her father's for a few days and just didn't come back. No conversation, no apology, no attempt to talk things through, nothing. She left most of her belongings here, but acted like she'd cut ties. Her father didn't take a parental stance or tell her she needed to talk to me. Instead, he encouraged her, taking space. That should tell you exactly how much he respects my role as her mother. From her dad's house, she blocked me on her phone and every social platform she uses. I only found out because Josh tried to message her, and she didn't respond. I checked my own phone and realized she'd blocked me too. When I confronted her father, he brushed it off and said, "She needs peace." Peace from what? Expectations, family, reality. Not long after that, I learned that he's exploring full custody. I heard it first from Rachel's grandmother, his mother, who told me he was documenting concerns. I confronted him directly, and he said Rachel doesn't feel emotionally safe in my home, a phrase I'm sure he fed her, because she repeats it like a script. I told him he was trying to erase me from her life, and he claimed I was doing that myself. Meanwhile, the rest of my extended family is acting like I'm the problem. At a recent dinner, I overheard my own sister saying Rachel was brave for standing up to me. And of course, instead of shutting it down, everyone just nodded along like she was some martyr. I called them out right there and said Rachel has been manipulative and disrespectful for months. They immediately took her side, insisting I was too harsh and favoring Josh. I've never felt so ganged up on in my own family. Around this time, Josh asked if he could have some friends over for a weekend hangout. I thought it would be good for him after all this tension. But the moment I found out they wanted to cook snacks and play games, I realized the house was a mess from how chaotic the week had been. Naturally, I asked Rachel to come home for a few hours to help host. It wasn't a major request. She's always been the organized one. She knows how to put things together neatly, and I thought it could even be a positive bonding moment for her and Josh. Something low pressure, something normal. I called her father and asked him to bring her home for just the afternoon. She got on the phone and said, "No, absolutely not." I reminded her that she used to enjoy organizing things, that this wasn't about punishment, it was about family and responsibility. She said she's not my maid and hung up. After that, she sent an email because she blocked my number saying I should stop outsourcing emotional labor to her and that she wouldn't participate in situations designed to make Josh comfortable at her expense. The way she talks now doesn't sound like a 13-year-old. It sounds like a therapist who's angry at me. I can't even recognize her anymore. A few days later, I told her she wouldn't be continuing her debate club next semester unless she showed some respect at home. She then told her father I was financially punishing her. He repeated it to me like it was fact, completely ignoring the behavior that led up to this. Then came the letter. She wrote me several pages explaining why she can't trust me, why she feels unsafe, and why she needs distance. She also wrote that she refuses to move back in until there's a fundamental change in household dynamics. In other words, she wants me to bend to her terms entirely. I told her father that a child doesn't get to dictate the structure of a home. He said it wasn't dictating, it was self-preservation. I can't win with any of them. If that wasn't enough, now the family has created a brand new group chat, one that does not include me. I found out because Josh accidentally mentioned something they talked about and then went quiet when he realized I wasn't supposed to know. My own child is in a secret family chat where I'm the villain character they all bond over. That's the level of disrespect I'm dealing with. And then there's my stepfather. After hearing a twisted version of events from who knows where, he confronted me about mistreating Rachel and said that if I kept behaving this way, he'd leave everything he owns to her. As if threatening inheritance is an appropriate way to interfere in someone else's parenting. I told him he was overstepping, and that rewarding Rachel for disrespect only encourages her behavior. He told me I was cold and blind, and said he wanted nothing more to do with me. So now apparently I'm disowned by a man who isn't even blood. And somehow, through all this, I'm the one everyone points fingers at. I still don't understand how the entire family has decided Rachel's narrative is unquestionable truth and mine isn't even worth hearing. I'm still the only one actually trying to parent, not coddle. Yet I'm the one labeled controlling, cruel, or unstable. I don't know how else I'm supposed to handle this. I've tried stability, follow through, and basic household expectations, and the reward I get is being cut out of my own daughter's life and condemned by people who don't even know what really goes on. I'm still asking, Ada. Comments. Comment 1. Girl, why are you even here? Seriously, you don't want advice. You want strangers to validate whatever narrative you've already written in your head. Every update just proves you're not listening, you're digging your heels deeper into the dirt. Your daughter left your house, blocked you, wrote out her feelings, begged for distance, had adults step in, had multiple family members call you out. And instead of pausing for even 2 seconds to consider what this means, you're fixated on disrespect and attitude. You read her private journal and then scolded her, and you still think you're the reasonable one. You let Josh into her room while she wasn't home, dismissed her belongings like they were meaningless. And now you're acting shocked she doesn't want contact. The problem isn't Rachel. The problem is you refuse to face anything that doesn't make you feel comfortable. You don't parent, you steamroll. And when someone pushes back, you slap a label on them: dramatic, unsafe, manipulative. At this point, I'm convinced you'd rather burn the whole family down than admit you mishandled a single situation. So yeah, for the record, YTA. But it won't matter. You'll come back with update 4 talking about how Rachel is brainwashed, Josh is traumatized, and Grandpa is senile. You don't want advice. You want applause. Comment 2. You are the architect of your own misery. Every time Rachel puts a boundary down, you call it disrespect. Every time someone calls you out, you call it an attack. Every time Josh screws something up, you call it normal teenage behavior. You keep saying you're the only one parenting, but parenting isn't reading journals, removing a kid from group chats, ignoring their feelings, handing their stuff to their brother, or treating them like the household's unpaid emotional regulator. And now look where you are. Your daughter left. She blocked you. Your ex is seeking full custody. Your extended family shut you out. Your stepfather cut ties with you, not her. Your family made a separate group chat to avoid you. That's not a conspiracy. That's a pattern. A giant flashing sign. But you're too busy calling everyone manipulative to realize you're the one people are running from. Reddit can't help you because you don't want help. You want to be right. Keep going down this road, and the only person you'll have left is Josh, and even he will resent you when he grows up and realizes you raised him to be helpless. Second story. Breaking up with my boyfriend was the single best thing I have done for myself, and I'm really glad I got rid of him. For clarity, we're both gay cisgender men, so some relationship etiquettes and expectations might not apply in this situation. I am 28, and my now FWB is 35. I'll refer to him as FWB from this point on. This would be my first real relationship, and for him, he's in the middle of a divorce with his soon-to-be ex-husband. This was before we met. His divorce had nothing to do with me. What I'm asking for is feedback on whether or not I could have done a better job at working at my relationship and/or what I should do or look out for if I enter another relationship in the future. So we met on the app The Kick and actually hit it off despite the reputation the app has. We both like trains, we both have careers helping the community, and he's pretty handsome. We chatted every day, exchanged numbers, and met only once because we're about an hour and a half from each other. This went on for about a month before the first problem came up. To lay out as much as I can to give a complete picture, I was out of state to attend a competition. By this time, I hadn't even opened the app since he and I started texting. For context, before I met him, if I was in a new area, I'd usually open the app and see what the local gay scene was like. 9 out of 10 times, I'm in no position to meet up with anyone while I'm visiting. And I often don't even engage with messages because, again, I wouldn't even be in the position to meet up with anyone, even if I wanted to. So when I opened up the app during the out-of-state competition I was attending, I didn't think much of it, and I was only on the app long enough to see who messaged me since I've stopped using the app, and who was nearby. However, FWB saw my recent activity and asked me about it, and yes, I'm well aware of the trope of people accusing you of cheating on them on the app while using the app themselves. But he didn't give off that kind of vibe. I'll freely admit that I F'd up in that instance, and what it can look like to someone not used to my personal habits. We talked, I apologized, and I wound up deleting the app altogether because I valued him and what we had going over some app, no matter how innocent my intentions were. Things seem to have gotten better since that incident. Fast forward maybe 3 months. We're chatting and texting every day and meeting about twice a month due to our hour-and-a-half drive distance. He'll travel to me because he didn't want the awkward situation of me running into his husband, who he was still living with at his place. However, issues started to rise up again. This time it was my living conditions. I'll freely admit that I don't keep my place spotless, and sometimes I'll have laundry that still needs to be done when he visits. My room, overall, would be clean with the exception of last-minute touches like arranging the dresser top and TV stand. FWB is more adamant about cleanliness than I am. And I'm working on getting better at it, not only for his sake, but also for the principle of putting in more effort. This wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for the fact that one day, FWB said out of the blue that we might not be right for each other if I couldn't clean my place to his standards. Now, I might be misrepresenting what took place, or maybe I'm overlooking larger factors at play. But in my mind, I feel like there are better avenues of conflict resolution, especially over something relatively small like getting better at cleaning, than threatening a breakup. I've said as much to him, but I didn't really get much of a response other than that he'll think about what I said to him. At this point, I wasn't really concerned about the relationship as a whole, but I was starting to see a red flag. Fast forward a few weeks to maybe a month, making the relationship about 4 months old at this point. An FWB said that he had a house rented out to tenants that was several hundred miles out of state who were moving out. He made a passing comment that he might move out there himself since the property taxes and cost of living were cheaper. I still very much wanted to stay where I'm at, as I've already had an established livelihood, and told him as much. We agreed that if he did decide to move out of state, then that would be the end of our relationship, with the implication to me at least that he'll decide against moving. Then about a week or two later, with no warning or discussion beforehand, he texted me saying that he decided to move out of state. I was obviously sad and surprised, but I didn't want to stand in the way of him doing what's best for him. He was still going through the divorce process at this time, and he said he wanted to get away from everything and start fresh. As sad and surprised as I was, I started the process of moving on and losing the spark that I had for our relationship. We would still see each other as a last goodbye before he left. But then, he decided against moving out of state altogether. That's all fine and dandy, except for one thing. I no longer loved him as I did before he dropped the news. At this point, I figured I'd give it another shot, and maybe I can get the spark I had for the relationship if we spend more time together. However, the spark never came back, and now I'm again receiving texts about not being boyfriend material and not doing boyfriend things like opening the car door for him, even though it was never brought up in the first place. Fast forward to about a month ago. I was temporarily placed on night shift. I told FWB that I might not be texting him as often or meeting up because of my new sleep schedule. I also told him the best time to contact me and when I'll be awake. Well, one day I woke up to missed phone calls and texts that were sent in the morning basically saying that we're done because I couldn't give him the time of day, even though I told him the night before that I'd be awake later in the afternoon. We talked and basically agreed to be FWBs with no expectation of a relationship with each other. And that's our current state as I type this. Basically, I'm asking if I was in the wrong during this whole ordeal, or if both parties are to blame. I'm turning in now, but I'll answer questions as they come. Commenter. Straight guy here, so I may not be the best person for this, but WTH, I don't really think anyone is ta here. Yeah, things haven't been the best, but he is going through something incredibly stressful and may not be the best at coping with it, causing him to lash out. If both of you want this to work, I'd suggest sitting down and having an honest conversation. Bring up therapy or counseling if you think it'll help. If he refuses to take accountability for how his actions have been affecting you, then at that point, he is ta. Update. I've linked my original post for those curious, but as the update states, after roughly 10 months or so of seeing each other and not seeing eye to eye, I decided that we were better off seeking different life paths. To expand on what transpired, it basically got worse. His questioning of me cheating on him throughout the relationship evolved into accusing me of seeing someone else because I had my sheets in the washer, attempting to look through my phone when I'm not there, and then trying to tell me I changed my password. I'm a lazy and forgetful person who hasn't bothered with changing my password since I first got my phone, and starting to use his age difference, him in his mid-30s and myself in my late 20s, and the fact that he was married for 15 years as a way to quell dissent. He also made a couple of breakup threats between the last time I posted and now. At this point, I was completely done. There was no feeling whatsoever, and whenever we meet up, I'm in a different headspace just to get it over with. As politely as I could, I told him as much and stated that we should part ways. Even if I was ultimately in the wrong in this entire ordeal, this isn't something I want for either of us. If he was right all along, then he deserves someone who can wait out his stress of divorcing his husband and love and support him the way he should. And I can't be that person. On my side, I don't want to constantly walk on eggshells, thinking that the next disagreement will result in him threatening to break up. I also don't want to rethink my entire LGBT friend group and overanalyze whether or not it could be perceived as me having feelings for my queer friends. I want a relationship where we understand that what we have together is special, and the thought of either of us cheating is out of the question. I also want healthy and mature conflict resolution. This whole situation made me realize that we had different goals and different philosophies, and we were at different stages of life. I'm kind of taking a break from the dating life for now because I have a major life event that's going to take up most of next year. I have been talking to someone since my breakup, but I've made it clear that I'm not in the position to seriously date until my life event is dealt with, and I can focus on relationships afterwards. So we'll see if anything comes of it. If not, oh well, I have the rest of my life to find someone. Comments. Comment 1. My first impression is he's a neurotic man baby with extra issues, and you're better off without any of that nonsense in your life. OP. I still want to see it from his perspective because, at least for a brief moment, he was actually a pretty decent guy and, honestly, a breath of fresh air in the sea that is hookup culture. Ultimately, though, we're simply not compatible. He probably does have issues, but I'm not the one to be dealing with them. All I can say is I hope he finds the perfect person for him. Comment 2. Just out of curiosity, do you know for sure that he and his partner were divorcing? It almost seems like you're the side guy since you're not allowed in the general vicinity of where he lives, let alone his house. He also sounds kind of stuck up. Clean your house, or we can't be together. And has the car door problem. I'm not gay, and I've never been in a gay relationship, so I don't know how opening of doors goes. But in my mental image, it seems more like something the older would do for the younger partner. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this fact, though. Like, are there other things that are considered, even subconsciously, as I am assuming and don't like to do so? It almost sounds like he's self-destructive right now too, which could be a personality trait as much as the other issues could be a personality trait without being tied to self-destruction. However, if he's cheating or going through a breakup, especially if he is the big part of why and recognizes it, it may be the SHT feeling of it contributing to a feeling of worthlessness. I'm not saying that any of these are the reason, but I also like to try to look at all perspectives. And regardless, you did the right thing. You deserve to be happy, and without that spark, it doesn't really matter how happy you are now. You'll feel like you're missing something. OP. I can never know for sure because he was adamant about keeping me from his friend circle. TBH, I haven't introduced him to my circle of friends, but it's mostly out of physical restraints us living so far apart, and I wanted to solidify our relationship before being completely out and proud about it. I told my friends about him when we first met because I was excited about finally getting a boyfriend, but he admittedly stated that he hasn't told anyone. At this point, it doesn't matter. But I did feel like a secret he was keeping, even if I were to fully believe him at his word. As far as opening car doors, this is honestly a first for me as well. I've never had to open a car door for anyone, and the idea is kind of silly. It's easier to just let yourself out, and we can beeline to wherever we're going. Comment 3. Yeah, I can bet his cheating accusations were him projecting. You have been together for months, and he still could not tell anyone about you. And don't forget that he saw your use of the app on the original post, so he was there himself. OP. Part of me wants to snoop or ask for the husband's side of the story. But I'm honestly happy just washing my hands of this entire situation and walking away to greener and brighter pastures. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.